Hey everybody, I am going to give people a few minutes to hop on so we can start talking about mental health during this COVID crisis. It is a really scary time for all of us, and so I just wanted to just kind of check in and see how people are doing. I'm going to try to share this on my personal page before we get started. So just give me a second to get things organized, and I'll just have people hop on. Hey, Chanel. Chanel, tag me. I don't know why I can't do it from my own page. I must keep trying. But I'll give people a couple more minutes to hop on. And then we will go ahead and get started so we can talk about how we try to care for ourselves. We got a lot going on. Okay. Okay, so we have some folks on. I'm going to just kind of give some tips, some things we can try, and then I'll make some time to have you all ask any questions you may have, because I know people might have some questions. Share. Okay, for some reason this won't let me share in my own page, which makes zero sense, but you know. Thank you, Chanel, for starting a watch party. Can somebody tag, whoever's on, can somebody tag my personal page too? I don't know why it won't let me share, but I don't feel like fighting with Facebook Live today. So thank you, Chanel. Okay, so first, let me just start by saying this time is really, really scary for all of us. So I think an important first step is just to recognize and acknowledge that uncharted territory for all of us. We've never been here. At least, many of us have never had this happen in our lifespan. We've not been asked to kind of pare down our lives to the same extent. And so this is new territory for all of us. We're talking about a virus that's really scary. And so I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that this is scary stuff and that this is new territory for all of us. And we have to really think differently about what it means to have some sense of normalcy in this time. A piece of that is acknowledging that this is not normal. It's not okay. It's, sometimes we try to kind of pretend as if everything is fine. And this is one of those situations where I would encourage us to really think about acknowledging this is not okay. I'm not fine. I'm scared. I'm concerned. I'm worried about my family members who might be immunocompromised, or I'm worried about my family members who are healthcare workers and continue to have to go to work. This is really scary. And so anytime we can find those spaces to just acknowledge, look, I am not okay. I am scared about this is really important. One of the things we do on social media is just kind of play to try to have fun. And I think that's good. We also need the balance. If you don't do that publicly, think about what are the spaces in your life where you can just say to people, look, I'm really worried about this. I have some concerns. I was on a group chat with some girlfriends of mine earlier today, and we were just talking about how scary this is for all of us, the health implications, the financial implications, all of that. And, especially related to our mental health, one of the things that can be really scary is that so much of this feels outside of our control. There's so much going on that we personally don't have a say about. Full as an individual, in your friend group, in your family group, to think about what are the pieces of my life that I can implement some control around. What are areas where I do have a say? So I have a say if I'm stuck at home, which I'm here with my whole family and I love them a lot, right? And we also need time apart, right? So what can I have a say about? Is it my schedule? Is it what I eat? Is it what I'm taking in terms of social media content or TV content, right? So control whatever you can control. One of the things that can be hard when we're all sitting at home scrolling our phones is that some of us away from some of this news coverage about coronavirus. Now, some people might take issue with that. You feel like you need to keep in the know. Here's the thing. You will be inundated information about what's going on. It's all the media is talking about. And there's some news update. We don't have to indulge in every update as soon as it happens. Hey, y'all that are joining, please feel free to type a question, or if there's something particular you want me to address, right? So CNN, they're always giving you the latest update. If it moves from 19 cases to 22 cases, now it's a breaking news. Look, the way my nerves are set up, as the mothers would say, the way my nerves are set up, those constant updates are not going to help me feel like this is more manageable. Once a day, I can get an update. I can know whether I'm on lockdown or not, and that's all I really need to know. And sometimes if we're inundated with the news and we're inundated with information about it, we can just send our systems into. So the key is really to think about, on a personal level, how much of this can I tolerate? And if I feel myself getting anxious or overwhelmed, can I do what I need to do to just step back and take some time away? That piece is very, very, very important. The news won't go anywhere if you don't watch it for a whole day. And so I've just decided that once a day is all I can personally take, and that's going to be okay for me, right? So if you feel yourself getting worked up, overwhelmed, if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're restless, you can't keep still, consider taking a step back from some of the news coverage. You'll still get all the information. Somebody's going to text you, somebody's going to tag you in something on Facebook. Find out what you need to find out, but we don't have to overwhelm ourselves with this media coverage. The second piece I would say is you must take care of your body. This looks a lot of different ways. So the first piece is, for many of us, we're not used to having this kind of downtime. And so our natural inclination might be to just kind of sit around and do nothing. And I think it's okay to do that for a while, because probably many of us needed the break. But you also want to think about how you can take care of your body, because stress negatively impacts your body. Here's the example I use with people all the time. So our bodies react to stress as if we are fighting a physical threat, right? So any kind of stressor. It could be an interpersonal stressor. It could be health related, environmentally related stressors like what we're dealing now. Our bodies aren't sophisticated enough to understand, oh, this is an environmental stressor, so I don't need to prepare myself for action. Your body thinks that stress equals action. And so even if it's a fight with a family member, or you're watching too much news and you get overwhelmed, your body prepares you to fight a bear, to run from a fire, to lift a car off of your child, right? It's that level of physiological reactivity. And how we know our bodies are reacting that way is because we start having increased heart rate. We begin to feel more agitated. You might have trouble sleeping. Your eyesight gets clearer. You might start sweating, right? There's all this bodily reactivity that happens. And one of the things that we have to do to try to manage that stress that builds up in the body is by exercising. breaking down some of that stress chemical that gets released. It's called cortisol. Many of you are probably familiar with cortisol, right? So you might be thinking, oh, I'm at home, I'm chilling, I'm watching Netflix. But in the back of your mind, or maybe in the front of your mind, you're seeing coverage about how many new cases of coronavirus there are. If you've got kids, your kids are at home. I love our kids, but this is a very different period of time for all of us who have kids at home because we're in close quarters and we might be used to having more time apart. I'm thinking about, okay, if they put us on lockdown, how am I going to get groceries, right? And so all of those stressful thoughts, even if we aren't articulating them out loud, or even if we feel like we're relaxing, can end up impacting our bodies. So it's very important that we take care of our bodies. That looks like sleep. It looks like nutrition, right? Don't eat all the junk food in one day. Try to give yourself some balanced meals. Try to keep your hydration up. If you can exercise, I know many of our gyms are closing. And so the gym rats are like, what am I going to do? You all know there are all kinds of exercises that you can do. We're having great weather. So let's see if you can go for a walk, right? Get outside in the sunlight. If you can do some body weight exercises, even some stretching, just to get your body moving and to break down some of that stress will be very, very helpful for you. The next piece for my introverts in the group, you all by now are probably really missing social interaction. You want to connect with people. And the temptation might be to do something like, well, I can just get together with a couple of friends, or I can just go out. And the challenge is that if all of us do that, we defeat the purpose of trying to self-quarantine, right? So the responsible choice in this moment really is to kind of stay at home and hunker down. But that doesn't mean that we can't connect with people. So think about what are the ways you can connect with people you love. I already have 2 group FaceTime dates scheduled for this weekend, right? And so the idea is, even if I can't be in proximity with people, I can still be in community with people. And because we're all in our, relative locations and we're not together, be intentional about that. So that means you might actually have to reach out to somebody. Can we spend some time just connecting about something? I want to talk to you, right? Those of you who Netflix has released this app called Netflix Watch Party. So you can get together with some friends and movie together on Netflix. It's a great way to connect, to spend some time together and really be close to each other. But what are the ways we can support each other? And that works both when we're feeling great and we want to enjoy each other, but also when we're feeling bad and we really need to help. The reason I decided to do this is because I put a Facebook status up yesterday just saying, hey, how are people doing? How's your mental health going? So many people were commenting. Some people were saying, I'm good, I'm hanging in there. But others were saying, I'm really struggling, I'm not okay. And so I think we need to think um, really intentional spaces for those kinds of people who are living alone, people who might be socially isolated. Something we can do just as good community members is to reach out and check in on those people, to offer support. Another piece for those of you who are working from home, I am somebody who has a pretty hectic schedule, always going from meeting to meeting. I have very little downtime in my workday, and I can be home. Well, now and so one of the things I've had to come to terms with is that my productivity level during this quarantine period is not going to. I simply cannot keep up the pace that I've always had because things are different. And so think about where are the periods, where are the areas in your life where you need to extend yourself some grace and embrace that this is a new normal. Whatever expectations you had for yourself 3 weeks ago when you were going into the office, working 8 hours, whatever you were doing, those expectations, frankly, do not apply. And this is particularly for those of us who are working at home, right? I know that some of us, healthcare workers, our daycare workers, other essential personnel, are still going into the office. That's a whole different level of stress that we'll talk about. But specifically for us who are working at home, reset our expectations. There is nothing worse than setting an inappropriate expectation for yourself and then being meet it. And so think about, we can exercise some grace, both for ourselves and people around us. We all need some slack right now. I've been thinking about with my students is like, yes, I can assignments, but when I'm mentally and emotionally overwhelmed, I simply do not have the capacity to manage all the things that I have. One of the things I talk to my clients a lot about is the difference between ability and capacity. So ability is what you are able to do just based on your skill level. And most of us probably have pretty high ability levels. But here's the thing. We are in a period of time where everything has gone topsy-turvy. Our emotions are all over the place. Our physical environment isn't stable from day to day. And so because of that, despite our ability level, our capacity level might be diminished. And so when I'm thinking about, okay, what am I going to try to accomplish today? I want to focus on capacity, which is, okay, what am I able to do? But also, what are the environmental factors that influence what I can really get done? And so my encouragement to you is to sit down and really think about, are my expectations appropriate for me, for my family, for my kids? Like, some stuff is going to slip through the cracks at this point. And I have to be okay with that, because otherwise I send myself into this unnecessary tailspin and make an already stressful situation even more stressful. So think about, what are the ways I can reset my expectations to appropriately manage all the things that are going on in my life? Okay. How are we doing so far? Do people have questions? Resetting our expectations. Yeah, Jay, that piece is really, really important. Just feel free to type something in if you want me to address something in particular. Okay, so here's the next piece. Think about all of the capacity and opportunities to learn during this time. It can be really easy, and in some ways, we are encouraged to focus on the doomsday stuff. We're encouraged to really focus on how terrible this situation is. And let me be clear, it's not terrible. It's scary, and I'm anxious and worried about it, right? I've had to make major shifts to my life, as many of us have. And so, but that information about what's terrible is always going to be available. And so think about what it would be like to challenge yourself to find some silver lining in this. Maybe it's that you work really hard and now you actually have some time to sit and be. Maybe it's that you push back some deadlines and you don't have to have guilt about it because it's simply fun. Maybe it's that your family is so busy with all these activities and now you actually get to spend some time together, right? My family, we've been doing puzzles, we've been watching movies. We don't get to do that on a regular basis because we're so busy and we have so many activities. And so it's given us an opportunity to really connect and just be with each other. I have also it's given me a chance to kind of think about, okay, all the stuff that you're doing, do you really have to do it? What are you, by being such a hard taskmaster and demanding that you do all of these other things, right? And so think about, what are the opportunities you have to learn, to readjust your normal? For me, that means I might need to chill out a little bit, right? I can't focus on the little stuff because in the grand scheme of things, even 2 weeks from now or a month from now, I'm asking myself, will this matter? Will it matter that the dishes weren't washed in the time period that I wanted them to be washed in? Will it matter if the toys were picked up or if the laundry was done by a certain time? At the end of the day, this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what's really important and to kind of, get back to basics in terms of our values, in terms of what we really want to be the foundation of the lives that we build, right? This is putting everything into question. The things that we thought were secure don't feel as secure. And we can't fix the big picture. We can't kind of the larger scope of what's going on, but we can work to craft our environment in such a way that this is not all bad. Angela says, set expectations, be encouraged, family time. Absolutely. For those of you who have a religious or spiritual belief system, now is an awesome time to commit to that system. If it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's devotional time, right? A lot of times I identify as Christian, so I'll speak from that framework, right? A lot of times we as Christians, sometimes we don't make time. Well, look, you got time. Now you can do your census, you can do your devotional every day, you can get your exercise in every day, you can clean out your closets, right? We have lots of opportunity, and it's not always going to be about productivity in these moments. Sometimes it's just right. So I'm thinking, when's the last time I sat at the kitchen table and just colored with my son? If I'm being honest, I don't do that often because I'm always running. Now I can't go anywhere. So I have that opportunity there, right? Think about Michelle. Your voice is so soothing. Oh, thank you, Michelle. So think about what might it be like for you to take this unplanned break and do something that you've been excited about. Is there a book you've been wanting to read? Is there a hobby that you really enjoy, but you haven't made time for it? Is there a craft that you want to dig into? Look, as YouTube is your oyster. If you want to start something, figure out how to make it happen. There are opportunities here. And one of our challenges as we are dealing with this anxiety-provoking time is to focus on there is more than just the bad. There is more than just the bad. And we have to remind ourselves of that because y'all know good news is not as sexy as bad news. So you're less likely to see the stories about people doing good in these moments. You're less likely to see the stories about people recovering from coronavirus. And so we have to seek those out. Another way that you can organize your time, if you have the flexibility and ability to do this, is think about what are ways you can be of service. One of the consequences of schools being out for so long is that for a lot of people, sometimes kids, the only meal they get is when they're at school, right? So we've seen all of these opportunities to volunteer relating to getting meals out to kids or those kinds of things. If that's something you can do, that's a great way to feel like there's something you can do, some way you can be helpful to people in your community. Angela says, my issue, I just need to chill out, relax, redirect, refocus. Not being able to visit my dad in the nursing home is hard. Yes. And so for those of us who have family members who we can't go see them, whether they're in the hospital or the nursing home or whatever. So one, if you have a phone call or FaceTime is better than nothing. Also, what if this is a way to return to some basics and get out that old-fashioned greeting card, put a stamp on it, and to somebody, right? The mail is still running. Your mail carrier is one of those essential personnel. And so maybe now's the time for you to actually send somebody a letter or a card saying, hey, I was thinking about you. I want you to know that I'm still here for you and we're still in community and I want you to be okay. Carletta says, give ourselves some grace when it comes to keeping tight and detailed schedules during the day, lessening the pressure I put on myself to be doing something all day with the kids. Listen, so I put up a post on Facebook the other day that my son's homeschool teacher is terrible and she needs to be written up. I am her. She is me. I teach adults. teach kids. I love my kid, and I think he's great, but everybody ain't made for homeschooling. And so, those of us for whom that is not our ministry, let's give ourselves some grace. We'll spend some time in the morning working on something educational. In the afternoon, we'll try to do some art. We'll try to go outside. But I am not going to run my kids ragged, and I am not going to run myself ragged, because trying to listen, let me be clear. If your natural inclination is to have things organized in that way, more power to you. I hope some of your inspiration rubs off on the rest of us. But if you are expending a lot of time, energy, emotional resources trying to keep things a certain way, remember, now is an opportunity for you to set your own expectations. And families get along the best way they can. So if you have a well-oiled homeschool machine, those of you who are already homeschooling, y'all know how to do this. And listen, y'all need to get paid too. But if you don't already have that, do your best. Do your best. There's no point in us stressing ourselves and our families out in this chaotic period anyway, when we don't know what's happening, right? And so just work on doing your best. Some grace whenever you can. Okay, Wanda says, now is also a good time to reflect on things we have taken for granted. Yes. I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about just taking a journal and writing down whether it's things that you're thankful for, exercising some gratitude, or things that you're learning in this process, right? And so one of the things I've learned in this process is that while I can be very type A, I can be flexible. And so when I use that ability that maybe I didn't recognize in myself in the future, okay, I'm here in the moment. I'm acknowledging that this is what it is, but I am also a firm believer that we will get to the other side of this. And so while I'm in this moment, I am also preparing for what I can take from this moment into the next moment when I'm not stuck in my house. And so it's about recognizing opportunities to reflect and be, maybe when we haven't had those opportunities before. Janice says, homeschooling is not my ministry. And I'm trying to be her Spanish immersion teacher at that, right? And so for many of us, we've been presented with an opportunity to admit that we can't do everything. And so while for some folks that might sound like a downside, really it's a gift. Because when I admit that I can't do all this stuff, I don't have it all together, I can't make all these moving pieces work, I can't make a new meal every day and be a homeschool teacher and work from home, I can't, right? And so when I'm able to say, I actually can't do all this, there are limitations in my capacity, then I also, one, give myself permission to ask for help when I need help. And number two, give other people permission to say, I am not okay. I can't do all of this. If we are going to get through this, we have to stick together and grace. And we are often better able to exercise compassion for others when we can exercise some compassion for ourselves. Philethia says, what general strategies do you recommend for managing anxiety? So many of us are experiencing different degrees of it due to the uncertainties around how COVID-19 is being managed by our nation. So certainly take care of your body whenever you can. For some of us, we might need to sort of impose a loose schedule, at least around waking and sleeping and meals. You want to be able to have a balance between doing nothing, which is good sometimes, and having some form of productive activity. even if it's not work, because some of us, if we're emotionally overwhelmed, we can't concentrate on work anyway. But maybe there's some activity that you can engage in that is goal directed. So I had posted a couple of days ago on Friday, last Friday, so a week ago, when I realized, okay, we're about to be stuck in the house, everything is about to be different. I could just feel my anxiety going through the roof. I mean, it was bad. And so what I know about me is that I'm kind of a worrywart and I'm not particularly good at turning my brain off. But if I could take something to kind of channel all my energy, I could focus all my attention in one place. So I pulled out a 500-piece puzzle and dumped it out on the table. And over the course of the weekend, all four of us spent time working on the puzzle. And so it was so hard and so difficult that I had to concentrate all my energy. And so for those moments where I was doing that, I wasn't thinking about apocalypse now. The other piece was it was time for us as a family to come together and work on the same goal directed activity, not have the TV on, to work together, to have a common goal. And so we finished it by, I think, Sunday night or Monday because we were all just working on it together. And so my commitment to myself was whenever I felt anxious or overwhelmed to just go to that puzzle, right? And so think about if there's some kind of activity that tends to center you or draw you into your own awareness of your body. Why y'all laughing at me? Because I said, okay. So maybe it's a puzzle. For me, it's a puzzle or knitting. Those are my two kind of go-tos. If neither of those work, then I go in the kitchen, random stuff, and cook something just to see what happens, right? If those don't work, I'm going outside. I'm going for a walk. It's right here. I'm in Richmond right here. It's sunny, it's windy, it's warm outside. So before the end of the day, I am going to get outside because the sunlight, the exercise, the fresh air does wonders for me. It's kind of like a reset. The other thing that many of us mental health professionals are doing is even though we're socially distancing, we are offering telehealth appointments. And so if you have a therapist, you can reach out to that provider and see if you can get a teletherapy appointment. You just need internet access to be able to do that. If you don't have a therapist, I know of people who are accepting new clients right now and will do it via telehealth, even though it's a first appointment. And so if you really feel like you need additional support, please reach out for that. A lot of us are doing, whether it's things like these or making new patient appointments, we understand that the anxiety is high, and so there are resources available. Phalathia says yes to goal-directed activities. Wanda says, I'm turning the news off, sitting outdoors, listening to the birds, walking by the lake. Yes. Beauty all around us. I was struck by, I went for a walk yesterday afternoon, and I just walked around in my neighborhood, and I thought, it's so beautiful. Like, think about the of all of us being so worried, being so overwhelmed, but then to just walk outside and have this utter peace. For most of us, our neighborhoods might typically be hustling and bustling. In my neighborhood, the only people who are leaving the neighborhood are the healthcare workers. Everybody else is sitting out on the porch. Now, I'm not going to go up to the porch because, we social distancing, but I can wave from the street and say, hey, people are out playing with their kids. People are walking around. People are sitting on the porch. And so there is beauty to be found, right? If you're going to look at news, look at the news about the fact that people are recovering in China. Look at the news about how the earth in response to all of us sitting inside, right? Dolphins showing up in the Venice Canal and air pollution being lower in some, right? It's not all bad. And the key here is that even though it can be a very helpless feeling to be in a situation where we're mandated to do certain things or not do certain things, the bottom line is we have choices. And it's up to each and every one of us to make choices that are supportive of our mental health, the health of our families, and to try to do the best we can to try to make it through this period. What other questions do people have or strategies that you've been using to try to get through? I know we've talked about a couple, but you all might have some that that I haven't thought about. So feel free to let me know. Another thing, another thing that I'm thinking about that I would like to just encourage us all to do, and maybe this is a guilty pleasure of mine, is that all that trash TV that you've been saying you weren't interested in, but you really were interested in, now is actually a perfect time to indulge in that. So, these there. Jana says, pray for us healthcare workers. Okay, so let's talk about the healthcare workers. First of all, healthcare workers, it is our responsibility to stay at home. Because if we don't stay at home, we are putting at risk the people who have to go to work. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not an epidemiologist. So I'm not going to start saying stuff that don't make no sense because that I have a PhD, but it is not in that. So all I can say is that based on what the smart people told us, y'all are home so we can limit community spread, right? So when all of us are staying at home, not sharing our germs, and the goal is to flatten the curve so that we don't have a high instance of lots of people getting this virus at the same time. Those of us who have the capability to stay at home, we should do it. Now, there are others who are healthcare workers, practitioners, who are med techs, who are working at nursing facilities, who all of these people can't stay at home because they are in an essential work status, right? And here's the thing. Our health workers doesn't mean with all the anxiety that we're dealing with. In fact, they're dealing with all of that of the fact that they still have confronted with the possibility of contracting this virus that we don't have. So for those folks is check in on them, pray for them, send them supportive messages. For those of healthcare field or otherwise essential work and you have to go to work, you really need to think about capitalizing on your time away from work and how stressful your job is right now. You are going to have to do in this moment and in the is whenever you have downtime, make the most of it. Get that exercise in, connect with the people you love, have somebody that you can call and just say, look, today was wild at work. I'm worried about XYZ. I mean, the implications of this are large. So you you have people worried about their jobs, and it's not just the healthcare workers. Think about people who are working in the restaurant industry, who are working at bars, who are in the hospitality industry, right? All of these people, if they don't go to work, they don't get paid. And it looks like we're quickly facing a time when those kinds of facilities might have to completely shut down. And so for those of us who are in those positions where our jobs, our lives are really in peril, again, think about what are the things I can control, who are the people I can reach out to for support, and where are the places that I can acknowledge that I'm not okay. For those of us who are not in that position and we have people we love who are still having to report to work, who are worried about, okay, if my job lays me off, what am I going to do? Think about what are the resources that I can provide. Do I have $20 I can spare so this person doesn't have to worry about dinner tonight? Or if I'm still purchasing food, can I purchase it from small businesses that are trying to stay open and just do a to-go order and run in and out really quick? If I have somebody who's delivering a food to my house, how can I up that tip to try to support them, right? And so think about what are all the ways that we can try to issue and offer support to people who can't work from home and really are forced to go into the situation with all the uncertainty that we have going on. We don't often think about the small things that we can do. Sometimes it is meaningful enough just to have somebody say, hey, I see you. My neighbor across the street is a nurse, and my son and I were out playing, and she came up. And so, we couldn't, she was standing, about 10 feet away because she's a nurse, telling her, look, I'm praying for you. If you need to talk, I'm here. You can holler across the phone, right? And she was just talking about stress that she feels on a daily basis, just trying to manage the situation. And we don't want to downplay that. We can play and joke because that's one of the ways that we cope, but we also need to acknowledge how truly scary and perilous this feels for so many people. And it's about being able to hold both. I am a firm believer that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And so what we can, joke around and, try to survive whatever way we can, because that's one of the ways we try to survive. But we can also take time to really think about, reach out to, and support the people for whom this feels like life or death. And that's not an exaggeration. I think one of the dangers of social media sometimes is that we tend to kind of, this isn't going to be a big deal. Where now we're having to kind of eat crow, right? This is not a hoax. It's not a big deal. Excuse me. It's not, something that was made up. And so what we have to do is deal with the reality of the situation, but also find ways to find little pieces of joy, little pieces of happiness, little pieces of enjoyment or gratitude to try to get through this, because that's what we're doing. And it's not always going to be perfect. We're not always going to get it right. I sent an email to my students saying, look, this is hard. We're not going to act like it's not hard. And so you do what you're capable of, but don't push yourself beyond your capacity, because at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of what's going on in this world, this is only a small piece of what matters in your life. And if I have to make a choice between spending time with my family and try to make sure they're safe and some work or some school or whatever, that's an easy choice for me because my values are clear to me. And so now's the time to really focus on those values and focus on what things are important so that we can get through this. What other questions do people have? Janice says, excellent points about how to offer support to fellow community members. Kindness. Yes, like it doesn't have to be some big thing. Have $1,000. But my husband and I were talking, one of our commitments is if we're going to order food, we're going to do it from a small business, because these are folks who've had to lay people off, or they might have to end up closing their doors. And you're talking about people's livelihood. So if I can have what I'm going to do, I'm going to support the people who are like me, who are just trying to make it, who are just trying to figure out. One thing I'll say, and keep asking your questions if you have questions or other comments that you want me to raise. But let's talk a little bit about kids. So if you have children at home, think about how swiftly this situation changed for them. Depending on how old they are, they might have had some inkling that there was something about coronavirus. But now, in the span of a couple of days, first it was, oh, we're going to see what happens. Then it was, okay, school will be out 2 weeks. Then it was, okay, school will be out a month. And now what we're probably looking at for most of our kids is that they will not go back to school this academic year. And so we've got to think about how to our kids about what's going on. Children are intuitive by nature. They are very good at sort of understanding things that are both spoken and unspoken. Parents to tell the truth. And so we've said to our kids, there's a virus going around, it's very contagious, it can be very dangerous. And one of the things that we're doing as a family is staying inside so that we can limit our exposure to it. A scary time. We don't have all the answers, but these are the things that we are kind of committing to as a family. And so, as parents or caregivers, right, we might need sometimes to just kind of completely come undone. My suggestion: your kids are asleep. And then when you're with them, be honest, allow them the space to talk about what's going on because, we sometimes forget that kids have feelings too and they understand what's happening in the world. Like, my son is 4, and so he knows that there's a virus, and his explanation is aliens were spitting on people and that's how they got the virus. Not exactly how epidemiologists would characterize it, right? But that's the way his 4-year-old brain has made sense of what's going on, right? And so for a period of time, maybe like 2 or 3 days after we kind of originally talked to him about it, he was drawing these pictures of family like fighting aliens, right? And so for him, what he really needed to know is, we're going to stick together as a family, and what are the ways we're going to fight this, right? Yeah, the picture was really about, okay, I have this sense that something is wrong. I have this sense that my family is working to protect ourselves against something. And so we needed to make space to have those conversations, right? Like, here's how we're going to fight the aliens. We're going to wash our hands. We're going to use sanitizer. We're going to stay inside so the aliens can't get to us. Y'all don't know about that. He figured out a whole situation. The aliens were to blame, right? And so, but imagine if we hadn't, as parents, taken the time to explain it to him. So now, all of a sudden, changes. Everybody's in the house. We haven't gone anywhere. We haven't gone into any stores. Not going to soccer practice. It's not like just because we don't talk about it, he won't know something is wrong. He'll still know. He just won't have a way to make sense of it or explain it. And so we have to actively talk to our kids about what's going on and just say to them, how are you feeling about everything that's happening? This is a big transition. You might miss your friends at school. Can we think about some ways you can connect with them? Uptight or overwhelmed, right? Do you need to go outside and run off some energy? So as we attend to ourselves and give ourselves permission to not be okay, for the expectations to be different, to extend some grace, we can also do the same for our children. And that piece is really important. We've been stuck in the house for a week already. And so at some point, tempers are going to flare. At some point, we're going to have conflict. And so it's my responsibility as a parent in this household to be able to say, look, we're all feeling stressed right now. What does everybody need? Do we need some time apart? Right? We don't have to be on top of each other the whole week if that's not what we want. Right? Does everybody have permission to go into a room and close the door and just have some alone time? Yes. In our house, they do. Right? We're going to convene around meals and we're going to try to do something as a family every day. But y'all know you can love the people you live with, and sometimes you just need a break. And so here's an opportunity to give each other a break, to take that time away if you need it, to not be so strict and stringent if you don't have to be. In some families, certain things are non-negotiable, but sometimes if you're, quote, breaking a rule, ask yourself, what's the consequence of this person breaking this rule? Is this just a rule that we have just because we have it? Or is it about keeping people safe or keeping us in community, right? And if it's not important, think about ways we can let it slide for right now, right? We don't have to put on a show for our family. We don't have to have things a certain way. And so whatever our basic values are, we can stick to those and let the rest fall where it may. We have got to exercise some compassion and some grace for each other in this moment because it's unpredictable. And when people are in unpredictable places, we get overwhelmed, we make up stories, we do whatever we need to do to survive. And so it's our responsibility for our own mental health to try to combat that and to stay focused on what's really, really, really important. Okay. Other questions or thoughts that people have? I don't want to just talk at y'all, but I do want to make sure that I address um, any particular concerns that people have. Um, I do want to, I try to make sure I'm answering all the major questions because I do know there are a lot of questions related to this topic, and I certainly don't have all the answers. But okay, so I am, it's been almost an hour. Lord, y'all let me go on all this time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log off for now. Based on some of the feedback that we're getting, I think it might be a good idea to kind of do this on a regular basis. So maybe, as long as we're in this quarantine period, on Friday afternoons, we'll just try to get together and check in. When I end the live period, I will also, in the comments of this video, share some other resources that I found to be helpful, just in terms of trying to manage the overwhelm of this moment. And so I'll share those as well, and we'll continue to share some resources on my social media, just to try to keep us all informed. But please, 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 take care of your family, stay focused on what's important. We will get through this. We just got to stick together. Okay? All right. I will talk to y'all soon. I hope you have a good weekend and take care.